Yay.
I'm interested. Oh, personally.
So a lot of times when I teach classes, we go around and people introduce themselves and say something about what they're looking for. And I'm going to save that for a subsequent class, because in the interest of time, because we only have an hour and we can't go long on this. We have to end at 6:30 because there's another group starting at 7. But but I do really want to hear what your questions are, what you, as we go. So there's a few times I'm going to stop and ask you, what do you think? So feel free to bring up anything, not just what we're talking about, but anything that is on your mind or questions that you have. So people are drifting in. I'm just saying, for the sake of the video, people are drifting in. And,
In droves.
huge numbers of people, masses of people.
Whatever narration. Sorry.
Biggest audience.
The most, that's right.
Biggest audience.
Well, I'm so glad you guys joined this. It's really, we never know when we set up something like this, like 2 people, 90 people, something in between. We never have any idea. And we feel, I mean, we being EBS board members and stuff, we think there's interest out there in the world, but we don't really know how much, what kind. So we're sort of guessing when we try to put things together for people, and it's nice that you find this helpful. Let's see who else is here. Somebody on iPhone. Thank you, Laura. I am. Sunny reminded me. No, that's okay. It's good that
And
you
I have too
remember.
many reminders.
But speaking of time, it is time. So we'll let people drift in. I realize this is kind of early in the day. People are still getting off work sometimes and driving and stuff. So we'll just let people drift in as they do and get started.
At least they're coming this way. My 6:30 is backed up,
Is it?
almost from UAMS, all the way up.
Wow.
4:30 and in it's,
All the way right.
Was there a wreck or something?
I don't know, it's backed up on the south end of 4:30. After you
Wow.
6:30, you go south on. But coming in, it was fine. Coming east.
Okay. Okay, well, I'm gonna start. Mick is out there to let people in that come late, so. Last time, we talked about the Buddha's life up until the moment when he left the palace and began his spiritual quest. And tonight we're going to pick up the story at that moment and carry it through the experience that we call enlightenment now. So if you remember, we talked about what drove him in the first place. And I mentioned that he had this hunger for knowing the truth. He had a deep sense of responsibility for the world. He had a sense of urgency because of the critical times that he was in. And he had a frustration with religious and political institutions of the day. They were not meeting the needs. They were not rising to the occasion and addressing the problems. So that's why he had set out. And we have to remember, I want to make the point that he had no Buddha to follow. He was no books to read, no community to join, no class to come to. He had to figure it out. And there were teachers, and he went to them, and we'll talk about that. But nobody had yet made the realization that he would come to make on his own. And he had to do that by himself and for himself. And today, even though we have all the books and the teachers and the classes in the community, each of us still has to do the work ourselves. It's like the teacher is a chef who can give you recipes, but you have to cook the food with your own hands. One of my teachers said, if there was a pill I could give you or a secret password that would make everything clear to you, of course, I would do that. But unfortunately, nobody can save us. We have to save ourselves. So there is a role for teachers, though. And it's a big part of the Buddhist tradition to rely on teachers. And it's an interesting relationship for Westerners. I'm going off script right now. I just want to say that because we don't have that same tradition in the West, like maybe apprenticeships or something like that. People make themselves an apprentice to an artist or a chef or something, but that role of the teacher is more common in Eastern traditions than here. So it's one that we don't understand very well in the West, really. We're sort of figuring it out. But anyway, he found a couple of teachers, and the first one he found was a teacher who was skilled in meditative concentration. They call it absorption in the book. And they don't really describe it in the book. What does this absorption mean? But I think it's a trance-like state where you block out all distractions. And I think similarly, in my experience, when I was giving birth to babies, I did the Lamaze method, and I tried to focus on something besides the pain. And I think they're teaching that kind of thing in cancer wards these days. So it's not something we're unfamiliar with. It's actually a pretty helpful thing. It's a good thing. But and I also use it when I go to the dentist and I think about the beach, you know, the seagulls, the waves. But another teacher helped him go even deeper into that meditative concentration. But as the book says, the Buddha recognized that complete liberation still eluded him. And remember that he was looking for truth. He was looking to learn how things work so that he could permanently solve the human condition. And as it said in the introduction to the book, the goal is to recognize our psychological condition and work with it so that we can wake up from our condition. And this absorption didn't teach him anything. I mean, he woke up from it and he was right where he had started, pretty much. Maybe he was calmer and more peaceful, or, you know, whatever the benefits were, but it hadn't taught him the answer to his question. So he decided to keep looking. All of this is what you read in the book. I'm just sort of going over it. But anyway, at this point, he decided to try asceticism. And it's a practice to deliberate you by subjecting your body to extreme hardships. And again, the book doesn't really say why people thought that was a good idea. Honestly, it sort of was at the time and still is in some places a very, you know, popular or not, or it exists, that thing. And I think the closest thing we can think of is like, there are people, I've met people who do extreme physical fitness routines, you know. I met a woman who was a firefighter, and she used to run uphill 10 miles. And it was like, and when she started meditating, she had a really hard time being in her body, being present in her body, because she had learned to put her body away and move outside of it. And I think people eating issues do that too. There are people, diets and things that are a form of subjugating your body. And the goal is to escape the body's demands. And Buddha almost died from these aesthetic practices. And he gave them up because, again, he was disappointed. He didn't learn anything. And that was his goal. So he gave it up. So today we talk about the middle way of Buddhism. They didn't use that term in his time, but we use it now. It's the middle between self-absorption and self-denial. And the essential idea of the middle way is that we are not broken or damaged. We are simply confused. To reduce our confusion, we need to trust who we are and what we are, to take care of our bodies, and to use whatever resources we have as human beings to explore, to inquire, to research, and investigate. So it was with that attitude of trusting his native abilities and completely unrestrained curiosity that the Buddha sat down under the tree. So I want to pause here and let you tell me what you think.
Any idea how long he went along the asceticism? Asceticism, is that the word?
Asceticism, yeah.
Asceticism. Do we have any idea from other sources how long?
Yeah, it's generally thought that the whole thing from leaving home to enlightenment was 7 years, and 4 or something like that. And so let's say 6 or 7 years pursuing all these different things, sitting down under the tree, and then 49 days under the tree. Only a month or so, couple months, right, Doug? Is that what you would say?
That was after he had tried
all these other things. He gave it a really good try, 5 or 6 or 7 years, something like that.
Thank you.
Dr. Lai, one of the teachers that comes here, who is, like I said, a professor of was a professor of world religions and a historian. He said that Buddha had the equivalent of a master's degree or a doctorate, like in our day, by the time he had done all that stuff so thoroughly. Thank you for that question. Anything else?
Well, doesn't he give himself like an ultimatum?
Yeah.
So even though he's not suffering with the he's not going the aesthetic route, but he's still forcing himself. Like, you're not gonna leave. I'm not gonna let myself leave until I find the thing I'm looking for.
Yeah. And I think what's interesting about that, though, is that he's not saying, well, he had confidence that he would find it. You know what I mean? He's not like, I can't do this and but anyway, it was kind of like, I can do this, I'm gonna do this. I think, I don't know, but that's a really good question. Like, maybe we think of that as an expression of his commitment.
That's determination.
Determination, yeah. But again, he was doing something no one had done, so he had to go, well, I mean, I think that's why we quote that. It's like, well, he decided to leap off the cliff and just throw himself into it and see what would happen. I don't know.
I can't help but think that through those years of really earnestly trying out other people's techniques, and some of them are, they do things
Yeah.
that there were glimmers of there is something there behind this stuff that it's within reach.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just like, well, it's useless. I'm just not going to go down to the bar or something.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense, Mick.
Just as a human thing,
Yeah.
There must have been some little glimmer that
Mm-hmm.
you felt like people were missing.
Yeah.
So. just so much.
because he kept going, yeah.
It also is noteworthy that apparently with those two teachers he went through, he was going through a lot of absorption, it sounds like, and
Mhm.
got to the top of the
Right.
teacher's limit. And that didn't do it. And
Yeah.
So, you know, if you can go all the way to the top of that, and that doesn't get you there, there's another chunk that has to be mastered.
Yeah. I think all of this is meant to, the story, again, there's not a lot of historical evidence of him, but the story that we inherited is meant to emphasize how unique he was. You know, how he had, and in the book, and I skipped it in the book, there's talk of his preparation in previous lives and stuff like that before this one, that he was already born, like, remember he walked at his birth or something. And, so like but he gave an honest try to what was available, but he had some extra thing going on. Anything else? I'll keep going. Okay, so the book points out that he was pretty well trained at the moment he sat down under the tree. Remember that he had the worldly education from his father, the spiritual training from the forest sages, and whatever skills he had picked up from them, and the experience of being with the communities of other seekers, because these teachers all had other students and stuff. So it was a lot of training. And like Dr. Lai said, the equivalent of a master's degree or something. And this knowledge, confidence, and experience was available to him to work with. And so it was reasonable for him to decide to examine all of that by himself and see what he could make of it. It wasn't crazy to say, well, I'm just gonna do it myself. It was kind of like, okay, I've got all this stuff. What does it add up to? What can I do with it? So there's a beautiful description of what happened, and I want to read that for a second. This is the moment, okay? So this is on page 16 if you want to read with me. The air cleared and was still. The full moon rose in the sky and shone softly. The Bodhisattva, unmoving, entered into the first level of meditation. The night was utterly silent, as even insects made no murmur. As the moon continued to rise, the Bodhisattva's composure deepened, and one by one he mastered the levels of meditation until he reached the fourth. His concentration was bright and unblemished, full and balanced. Then, through great confidence and trust, he relinquished the watcher, and his mind entered into an effortless, fathomless openness, untroubled by content. Yet he did not become caught up in this. Rather, with utter clarity and tenderness, he turned his mind to untying the knot of birth, old age, sickness, and death. So I want to pause there and point out a couple of things. One of them is that he didn't stop when he hit this peace place, where everything was open and clear and everything like that. He still did not have his answer. So he still was asking the question of himself. And I'm sorry, my notes. And so simply being free of confusion was not enough. And also notice that there wasn't aggression. There was tenderness and compassion and peacefulness, utter clarity and tenderness. He turned himself to the question. And I think that's really important to all of us who want to do what he did, but that we can't be hard on ourselves. We can't be doing this out of aggressively. It won't work. I mean, it just rebounds on you when you're aggressive with yourself. So what did he find out? And I'm going to keep reading. He found that the conditions For old age, sickness, and death is birth. Once birth happens, the rest follows inevitably. He saw that the condition for birth lay in processes of becoming already set in motion. That the condition for this was grasping or craving, that the condition for this was desire, and the condition for desire, feelings of happiness, suffering, or indifference, and the condition for these, sensual contact, and the condition for sensual contact, the fields of the senses, the condition for sense fields, the arising of mind-body, the condition for mind-body consciousness. He saw that mind-body consciousness condition each other to make a rudimentary sense of self. He saw that the condition for consciousness was volitional impulses, and finally that the condition for volitional impulses was ignorance. Then he saw that the whole process ending in old age and death begins when basic intelligence slips into unawareness of its own nature. In this way, all pervading intelligence strays into the sense of a self. So there's a lot in there, right? And as we go through this course, we're going to look at every one of those things. We're going to talk about how sensation leads to ego. And, you know, there's so much teaching about all of that, what he saw. But I want to point out the bottom line is that the mind is the source of everything that happens to us. And we don't know anything about what's going on in the mind. We don't know anything about it. Our whole world arises out of our minds, but we pay no attention to our minds. Buddhists call it ignorance and use the analogy of riding an energetic, spirited horse without a reins or a saddle, just clinging to its back while it runs wild through the countryside. That is how we relate to our minds.
That's good.
Right? It's not mine, it's a very old idea. So the meditation that he taught helps us become familiar with the activity of our mind, even to tame it. He uses that, the three words he said, or 3 sentences were, do no harm, accumulate goodness, to be beneficial to the world, and tame your mind. And that's referring to this force, really. So as we read in the introduction, enlightened people are builders whose intelligence and compassion are relatively unobstructed. They use their natural capacities and energies skillfully. People who can see through the clouds of emotional habits to the brilliance of their own nature. That's kind of what happened to him. I mean, that's what this indescribable enlightenment experience was about. So the meditation he taught is different from both absorption and asceticism. We want to stay present in this meditation with utter clarity and tenderness and turn the mind to untying the knots of our existence. We should learn something from meditation. And that sometimes is news to people. There's people who hope that enlightenment will be bliss. You know, you will never feel any pain anymore. In the next few paragraphs, and I'm not going to read them, the book mentions the central notions of Buddhism, and we will come back to these as we go forward in this class. The development of self, the laws of cause and effect, the wheel of dependent arising, the Four Noble Truths, and the path, the Eightfold Path. Those are all kind of referred to in the rest of that section. So I want to read one more thing, and that's the poem on page 17. Supposedly, this is words that he said at the time. I don't know who transcribed them, right? Maybe he was on Zoom and getting recorded, who knows? Seeking but not finding the house builder, I traveled through the round of countless births. Oh, painful is birth, ever and again. House builder, you have now been seen. You shall not build the house again. Your rafters have been broken down. Your ridgepole is demolished too. My mind has now attained the unformed nirvana and reached the end of every craving. Sounds pretty good. So in today's parlance, the ego is commonly called ego or self in modern Buddhist language. But these are loaded words. And especially for those of us who grew up in the West with the psychological education, because in our world, ego is a very good thing. You have to have an ego to function in the world according to the science of psychology. But and on the other hand, sometimes Buddhist students think that their ego is a mistake or a problem or something they have to get rid of because it keeps them from seeing clearly. And I think both of these ideas are a misunderstanding of the house builder. The house builder, I think, is something more like the horse. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not a mistake. It's not a bad thing. It's just the energy of life, and it wants to move and it wants to do things. It's alive. It has, energy. And without anybody holding the reins, the horse can only create chaos and confusion. So when he says, house builder, you have been seen, I think he's saying he tamed his horse. He knows what it needs, how to relate with it. He's saying that an enlightened mind is free of craving and fear. It can see beyond them. It can stop running wildly through the countryside. Now, I don't know. You could argue with that if you want. He also says that what he's attained is unborn, like the sun. For an ordinary person, the sun rises and sets every day. But if we could see the whole picture, the sun is always there, always shining. So there's this really vivid understanding that enlightenment involves seeing things in a really big picture, just a big picture. And I think about when they first went to the moon and they turned the camera back on the earth, that shock that the whole world felt of wow, look what we can see, So it's that kind of space and distance and bigness that is a problem because it's really hard to describe it and talk about it. And when we try to get there, we're like, where am I going? What is this? How am I doing it right? So I just want to plant that little seed. And clearly, it's not blankness or blissed out experience as some people hope. Instead, enlightenment appears to be a kind of radiant, confident intelligence, brilliant insight and wisdom. And with all of that, who knows what you could accomplish it? Who knows? So I'm going to pause again. Throw it back to you.
It's reassuring that we're going to get to hear about each of these things throughout the course, because that one paragraph that you read just blew my mind.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah.
I stopped taking notes.
Yeah. There's this idea of a chain of causation, and once it gets going, it goes all the way to the end. I mean, there are places theoretically you can break the chain and stop it, but it ends in it's only because you're ignorant that the chain goes along without. So
can I ask a question about enlightenment? Can you hear me?
yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, my name is Deborah, and I missed the first class, so I was away out of state, and I I was in another time zone and I forgot about the time change. So by the time I tuned in, you were gone. But I'm curious about the state of enlightenment that seems to be what everyone who practices Buddhism is searching for.
Mhm.
What I'm wondering is it a long process like Buddha went through? Does everyone go through that long, long process? And is it something they're always looking for, or do people actually reach it? Or and if they reach it, what happens? Does it, are there categories of Buddhists? I don't know how to describe that.
What a great question. Well, really great question. And I think those of us that are Buddhists in the room could probably each answer you in a different way. But theoretically, every human being has the capacity to become enlightened if they follow the recipe that the Buddha gave them. And how long it takes is very individual. There's this notion that we'll talk about too of everyone comes to the moment with their own set of circumstances, predilections, capacities, issues. And so whatever the work is that we have to do, it's different for each of us. And so therefore, it's kind of hard to describe a generic path to enlightenment that people follow. We look at his as an example, and I think it is fair to draw the conclusion that there's some work involved, and that it will take time, that you don't just sit down under a tree and have it happen. And I was trying to, say that tonight, that, you aren't going to sit under the tree in the park and hit the ball. It's like, he had worked really hard for that. But whatever you have, you can take and use for this purpose. And the other thing I would like to say, and other people can answer this for themselves, but I think for me, I've been at this for 40 years, okay? And I don't care that I haven't become enlightened yet, because the other benefits that have happened to me along the way are so worth it. And I'm more sane, I'm more patient, I'm more loving, I'm happier, and so to me, in fact, our teachers keep saying to us, don't stop now, keep going, enlightenment is possible, you got to do it, you got to do it. And I'm like, well, I'm fine. I sort of been plodding along. I'm that kind of person. I'm just like, well, I'm doing this now. I'll get there. Give me a minute, I'm in no hurry. Diligently chipping away at it. But I think that the benefits start happening pretty quickly from all of it that he taught, from studying and practicing and all of the things we've talked about. And especially, the understanding that things are bigger than they seem, and that it's worth looking bigger, looking for bigger answers, that kind of general attitude. Does that answer the question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And does anybody else want to speak to that? Yeah.
So I think in undertaking the practice, we see glimmers of clarity that when he became enlightened had
Yeah.
all clarity.
Yeah.
And I think most of us are just on that path of attaining more clarity.
Yeah.
Not necessarily expecting to have full clarity at the end of the day, but just that little bit of additional support to get us through each moment and realizing that each moment is as it is.
Yeah.
So it's more of a practice for me than it is an actual goal of enlightenment.
Mhm.
So I think everybody comes to it with a different intention as well.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you, Laura. I think the different schools of Buddhism too approach enlightenment in different ways. Some of them talk about it taking several lifetimes. And then some, like the Tibetans, say you're supposed to do it in this lifetime, this one lifetime. But a lot of them say, you train in patience, or you train in, you know, clarity, and then you get reborn and you just keep going and you train in compassion or whatever. And you work with what you have, Bo. The point is that you work with what you have and where you are. And you keep working and see where it goes. That's a really good question, Deborah. Thank you.
You know, I've read, and I've heard a number of times that having that as a carrot is a problem, though. You have to give it up on
Yeah.
some level, like, you're doing it with the aspiration, but in the short term, just say that doesn't matter, because the goal itself is such a kind of confused idea
Yeah,
that it's not helpful
right.
to have that, maybe today I'll be enlightened.
Yeah.
Not so helpful. I don't know, I'm taking heart in that, because it does seem like a long way for me. But, like you said, it's like, I can tell the difference, what's going on, and maybe little hints of this and that, you know, that's like, oh, getting a sense of the ground, a bit more of the space of it. But, anyway, I just wanted to say,
Yeah.
I don't know, that goal thing's issue.
Well, and I want to thank you for saying that, Mick, because the other thing about the practice itself is that ambition is not a good thing. And we live in a culture that cultivates ambition, right? So if you're on a self-improvement program and enlightenment becomes another thing you're going to do for yourself or whatever.
Option for you to.
Exactly. Then that's going to undermine.
You feel so empty because you don't have this valuable thing that your spiritual friend has, and so you're gonna get it.
Right.
You're gonna figure out how to get your hands. That greedy attitude is not particularly helpful to meditation practice and living your body.
Yeah, Laura.
And also, we're reading a book on Sunday, and it's, we practice for others, not for ourselves,
Yeah,
is what we were learning.
Yeah.
And it really hit home with me.
yeah,
Now, we're not doing this for our own enlightenment, we're doing this for the outward compassion, patience, kindness that it allows us to have. And that's really a gift for others.
yeah. The world needs builders, and we're becoming builders,
It's-
hospital builders and stuff. Yeah.
It's kind of like it's the world that has the sickness, right? We're just participants
Mhm.
in the sickness of the world,
Yeah.
and so there's a very big picture
Yeah.
that we're looking.
Yeah. Oh, I think also that Deborah asked if there are Buddhas, and I think the answer to that is yes. There are definitely Buddhas walking around in our world right this minute, but they're not wearing t-shirts or badges. They're just in the world doing what they do. And numberless Buddhas, actually. I believe that. I don't know if the book would say that or whatever, but I don't think it's that rare of an experience. Not every Buddha has to be the one that everyone looks to and follows, you know? Yeah, Laura.
I don't think every Buddha is Buddhist either.
Is Buddhist, right, exactly. Exactly. They come in all colors and shapes and sizes and walks of life. And but they have this clarity, and you know, we recognize something about people when they are that way. You know, there's this like we see it, we know it when we see it. And I think we do see it sometimes.
This is meditation practice, and the more we can be mindful moment to moment, we can individually begin to see what are our hindrances on the path
Mm-hmm.
and work with those hindrances to try to keep clearing the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But if you're sitting there going, have I got it yet? Am I there yet? What's happening? It's like, no, not gonna work.
Although that's not that unusual. When if you find yourself sitting there saying, is this even working? What am I doing? Am I ever gonna get anything out of this? You are being a pretty normal Buddhist at that point, you know, everybody's been there.
Yeah.
I was gonna say something about the ambition.
Yes. Yeah, hi, Nathan.
Hi. I was just gonna say about the ambition and drive for enlightenment.
Yeah,
Um Awake is not something you have or possess. It's something you become.
hmm. Can you say more about that? Did you hear that? Okay. You say more about it?
Well, I'm getting that idea from Eric Fromm on this these two modes. There's the having mode and the being mode, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so like when it comes to that ambition, trying to get things, trying to acquire, that's the wrong mode. I don't believe that's the mode that the Buddha was in when he achieved enlightenment. He was in the becoming mode. He was trying to become better,
Mm-hmm.
to grow, to develop. And so the achievement is not an achievement like, acquiring a multi-billion-dollar company or something like that. It's more like becoming the kind of person that people want to be or that you want to be.
Right. Yeah, I like that. I think there's a place in here where when we're talking about what he did, that is related to what we're talking about, where it says he let go of the watcher. And I'm gonna try to find the place where that is. Mastered the levitations, but then, okay, he was in the fourth level of meditation. And then his concentration was bright and unblemished, full and balanced. And then through great confidence and trust, he relinquished the watcher. And this, I think, the watcher is shorthand for the ambition, or the part of him that was like after something, looking for, am I there yet? I don't know. That word, the watcher, is a word that people use a lot to describe an aspect of mind that, again, we'll get into more later. But I think what it's referring to is that very thing that the thing is going to happen, you don't acquire it. And if you're shopping, it's not going to happen. If you're trying to acquire it. Anything else?
It's more like growing up than it is like buying something in a store. If a child doesn't know what it's like to be an adult, they can't imagine it.
Yeah,
But they know that they want to be an adult.
yeah,
They figured out what direction to go in.
yeah,
And all you really know is this making me more of an adult or less of an adult? But then you won't know what it's really like to you.
till you get there.
So you can't, it's not a picture in a catalog. It's the image.
Yeah. So I have one other little part to talk about, and I want to look at how he pondered about teaching this to other people. So I'm going to read one more little section, okay? Following the moment of enlightenment, the Buddha continued to meditate at the Bodhi tree, that's the enlightenment tree, and subsequently at various other places in its vicinity. After a time, he considered whether he should teach the Dharma to others. It is too profound and too difficult to be taught, he thought. It runs too much against the grain of stubborn and all-pervasive delusion. A world so totally caught up in attachment, so used to living in lust and aggression, has too much dust on its eyes ever to be able to perceive the truth that it hides from. The Blessed One concluded that he would not teach, he would remain silent. And then they talk about this God, Sampati. I don't know that guy, I don't know anything about him. God is a word that confuses me. But anyway,
Celestial being.
right, something like that. Something they had back then that we don't have right now.
Not seeing much of it.
Anyway. Anyway, he completed with him that there were many who were genuine seekers of the truth and with little dust on their eyes. These would be able to perceive the Dharma in its subtlety and depth. If you will only teach, he said, you will liberate countless beings from the cycle of suffering. And having been entreated in this manner, the Buddha was moved by compassion. He consented, and when he knew that he had been heard, the God disappeared. So I want to say, thankfully, he realized that the world includes some people who have genuine motivation, relatively little dust in their eyes, people who would be able to use his methods to achieve their own version of enlightenment. And these teachings would change their lives. And then who knows how many people those people would help? Maybe countless people would benefit. And ultimately, he was moved by compassion to go ahead and start teaching. And I think one point of this bit is to recognize that not everyone will follow the path themselves. It's hard. It takes time and effort. Some people don't have the opportunity. You know, they're busy staying alive, fighting a disease, fending off, bad guys or something. They do not have the opportunity to do this. Or they just have no interest. They're just not there. But for the ones who do follow the path, they will influence the world in a good way. There will be more sanity, more kindness, more wisdom in the world because of them. They will set good examples for other people. So Thich Nhat Hanh has this expression. He says, only one calm person can save a whole boat of terrorized refugees, terrified refugees. One calm person. And I think for myself, to think about being the calm person in the boat, it's enough, I don't think a Buddha maybe is in my cards, but the calm person in the boat is achievable. And I think a lot of people are feeling that way, When COVID first hit, Dr. Lai met with us. He's in North Carolina. He Zoomed with us and he said, okay, Bodhisattvas, this is our moment. Here we go. We got to step up and do our thing because the world needs us to stay calm and be reasonable and help each other and do all the things we've been thinking we were going to do as Buddhists. Let's do them. Now's the time. And I think that's true. I feel that way about now. So again, I'm stopping here. For tonight, I'm stopping here. I want to hear what you think.
Much bigger discussion. Maybe on time, but I could have helped thinking about the different cultures that use psychedelics to help with this life.
Yeah.
And how much of that is trying to fast track something versus
Yeah.
how much of it is trying to separate yourself from
It's funny that you mentioned that because there's actually a whole thing going on right now with mushrooms, psychedelic mushrooms and Buddhism. And it's like a thing. I mean, they're coming back around to that from the early 70s with LSD and stuff. We're coming back around to this idea that you can expand your mind, chemically. And I don't know how I feel about that, but it's certainly, well, I do know how I don't want to do it. But it is interesting that it's coming back up. And that you mentioned it. Yeah. Do you have friends that do mushrooms? Never mind. Personal question. But there's also the teachers. There are some teachers maybe encouraging it, but my teacher tells stories about it's just his father, who was a really, really realized guy, was encouraged to try LSD back in the 80s or something. And he just said, this is boring. Nothing happened. What are you talking about?
The intention used to, because at least how I see it sometimes with people my age and
Yeah,
a little younger, but I see people with the intention of trying to get something or like have this experience and then like scratch that itch over and over again. But I see for cultural history where it's more about slowing down and like completely dying to that version of yourself, humbling yourself. It's also kind of very different ways that it has been used as well.
yeah. So I think one thing we can say is that we are in another time of tremendous turmoil, like the Buddhist time was. And people are searching all over the place for all kinds of solutions because it's so bad or upsetting. And I wish everyone well, it's like, if that works for you, I don't mean you, but if that works for someone, they should do it, but it's like, I don't want to decide ahead of time what's okay and what isn't. Anyway. Thank you for bringing that up. What else?
Not like, there are 16 who's said rather with better clarity and tenderness, he turned his mind and time enough to burn all day sickness and death. He said, can't be hard on ourselves. And, he's speaking personally, very the soul here. I'm continually questioning my motivations.
Yeah.
Am I doing this just purely for the good of society, or am I doing it for my ego? So that's motivation.
You can meet that.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate you caring. But anyway, I'm all the time questioning the motivations, and so being nicer to myself.
Well, I don't, I think that everybody's like that actually, Sonny. It's like, we should be, kind of going, why am I on track or not? And there will be times when you are doing it for yourself, but that's just part of it,
We also have an inner Mara that figure that was trying to keep him from going to all the way to the line.
Yeah, what do you think, Maura? I don't know if there is a Maura, like, that
Well, I think it's an inner.
It's an inner thing.
That's my.
Yeah.
That's my perspective.
Yeah.
And I've read in some of the Buddhist literature.
Yeah.
It seems simple in so forth. This is a pretty good one because he tried everything possible to interrupt his path to getting to that final end. And thankfully it didn't succeed.
Right. Right. And in every case, the Buddha just sat there and let it come and go. He didn't react. I mean, that's the trick. I think you let that voice rise up in your head. You just don't take it. I mean, to me, it seems like the voice of our culture, because we live in a very puritanical, you're supposed to be productive and this isn't productive, or whatever the voice sounds like to each of us, but.
Mars, that's the one with self-delusion. Why wasn't that the guy was being.
Yeah, so what do they?
So it's not it's like Mara doesn't want the Buddha or anyone to see themselves as they are.
Yeah.
And then the Buddha I think that there's a way.
Yeah.
The name Mara, I mean, the word is related to the word for death. The idea is Mara is the one that keeps you in a cycle of just continually wandering. You never find your way out. You're sort of trapped in this world where, you die. But
Okay.
I have I have some of the teachers I listen to, they talk about the voice of Mara a lot, because the metaphor is, there's that voice in your head that's always telling you can't do it, right? Or it's not worth it.
Yeah.
Or you're never gonna figure this out,
Yeah.
You're not good enough, whatever that voice is telling you that's knocking you off your track, it's making you lose your aspiration. you know, to find the answers that you see.
Yeah.
That's one.
Right.
Keep stuff.
Listening to Ron Doss a little bit here and there, and just literally on the walk yesterday, I listened to the same kind of concept of. And he kind of related it to ego, like the mind playing with you, I mean, or keeping you attached because of its conditioning. It got birthed into its conditioning, and so that's been wired into a web of like, this is where you stay. And anytime you question it or try to get out of it, they're like, well, wait, hold on, like he'll talk about how people stay in therapy for years trying to fix themselves. Because wait, you're still not okay. You still got this thing, you still got this neurotic behavior that you're still trying to unravel. You're not ready to know that version of yourself yet.
Yeah.
So it's almost, I guess, the same kind of concept of letting go of the ego and the mind. But I want to make the Mara, but I don't know Mara well enough to know that. I want to make Mara similar. Is that kind of the same concept as like the ego? Could the ego and Mara be together?
When you're talking about when you talk about you're caught in this web, you're conditioning, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, Mara certainly is the voice of the culture that wants to keep you in your little slot and not get
Yeah.
out of it.
Yeah.
For sure.
And it's all based on fear, because if there's something wrong with you and you don't want, so you gotta stay in within those, what you know is normal, quote normal for you, and what the conditions have told you is normal. Cause anything that's outside of that, you're not safe anymore.
Mhm.
And there's no, the self is all of a sudden gonna lose itself, like, but yet you'll still be there on the outside. And this is all so, like, I can speak it, but I don't know that I
Yeah.
get it, I wanna make sure that's clear,
Well,
I can speak this stuff, but I don't understand it.
Well, I mean, I think that's the whole thing, right? Because the words are really, we have to use them, it's what we have,
Yeah,
but they fail to meet the whole challenge of the whole thing, because the experiences are so beyond words, and-
yeah,
And also, but you gotta use the words, because that's what we got. So there's that's so much part of the process. You read stuff, you think about it,
Mhm.
you try to conceptualize it, and then you sit down and try to let it go.
And that's I'm not good
Right.
at letting any of it go. I wanna know all of it right now. I don't wanna, I wanna intellectualize it. It's all gotta make sense and rationalize everything. And that's why I'm still stuck, there's no, like, I'm in that. So I found something I wrote during some
Yeah.
alternative medicine seeking. With one of my teachers there was like, seeking's not the same thing as listening.
Hmm,
And I was like, oh, well,
Yeah.
that's all I'm doing is seeking. I'm not stopping to like
Yeah.
absorb anything.
yeah,
And then she also mentioned knowing versus being. She challenged me to think about knowing versus being. I can know all day long, but the work is in being embodied,
yeah,
what you know,
yeah.
and letting go of knowing, letting go of being the knower. And I love being the knower.
Well, there's a point that when he talks about the builder and that the builder has been seen, the builder is building the house. So there's this understanding that there is a part of you that's constantly building this structure to keep you in place, right? But it's not a thing that just happens to you, it's an energy. In fact, the word ego can be understood to be a verb rather than a noun. That it's a habit, a practice of creating things that imprison you, right? Or things that keep you in your place. And that's interesting. He didn't say, I'm stuck in this house. He says there's a builder building the house. But once you see the builder, then it's different, it doesn't, you can let go of it.
And you ask it to be your friend instead of rejecting it. Like, is
Yeah.
that kind of the word too? It's like, I see
Yeah.
what you're trying to protect me. You're asking, you're the protector to relinquish control.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying it's like a beautiful wild horse. It's not your enemy, it's just energy of life, it's just, and you can get to know it, and you can live with it,
And ask it what it wants help with.
Yeah.
It's what
Yes,
I can bring you
exactly.
to.
Exactly.
Yeah, lots of words.
So many possibilities.
I'm kind of struck by, in the story of Mara, it's such a, epic battle kind of deal, with all brings all the troops in to
Yeah,
them all off his seat and everything, but in our meditation class, we talk about it all the time at a very like minute level, very down to earth level. It's like when you just, like one does, just be here now, seems simple. And when you try to just stay present, Mara actually kind of comes up and tries to kind of pull you away. Very subtle, so subtle you can't even feel the hook on it. And yet, so it's not this big monster that's trying to whatever, it's just a visual pattern that we deal with the energy that rises.
yeah,
You can't say it enough almost to yourself, like, it's okay, just let things pass by and eventually the energy then calms down. It's not so wild, it still comes up, not so wild, doesn't catch.
not so out of control, yeah.
But, never ends in a way, but it's, I'm just saying, I love the drama of this, but my dramas are much more like that guilty thing I feel bad about in fifth grade. So that's like,
Yeah.
thanks, Mara, for that.
Yeah. So actually, we are at the end of our time. Amazingly. I want to, next time we're going to talk about his teaching career and how he organized his followers and his community and everything, and how that translates into what we do today as Buddhists. So please read the rest of chapter 1. And I did remember to record thanks to my faithful reminders. So this video will be on, I will put it on EBS's YouTube channel and include the link in the next email I send you. That's going to tell you what to read for next time. If I don't have your email address, make sure I do. I think I just got Alyssa's tonight, and I think I have everybody else that I'm seeing. Lily, do I have your email address?
Yes,
Okay,
yes, you do. Thank you.
okay,
Can you include the transcript with the video?
sure. I don't promise that I said exactly the way it's written down, but that's okay, right? I do have the habit of writing everything first, and then, so why not share it? I don't care.
Like getting class notes, access
Yeah.
to class notes.
Yeah, yeah.
Expresses your intention to what you plan to say.
Yeah, and I do put a lot of work into it too, I will say. So it's like,
It's helpful.
yeah, I think it can be helpful to you. And if it is, that's what I want. So I'm gonna again say the little closing prayer, and I'll put this in the email next time too. This is a prayer from my teacher. Whoop. His name is Choki Nima, and this is a prayer he taught us. It says, the teacher has appeared in this world, and the teachings have illuminated it like the light of the sun. May the holders of the teachings be in harmony like siblings, and may the goodness of the teachings remain for a very long time. So thank you again for coming tonight. I'm really glad you did. Be here next time, same
Thank you.
time. Yeah, okay. Thank you, guys. I'm gonna close the meeting now.
Siblings.
You get along with yourself.
Yeah.